We're going to do a quick watercolor washes to get our texture ready for practice tomorrow. To do this, I'm going to begin by mixing the colors I need. I'm going to put the image here on the screen of what we're going to start with drawing today. And we are going to be practicing doing fur. That can be for horses, cows, goats, any type of animal with fur. This is going to be a similar process. So load your palette with your dark brown, light brown, and then our medium brown is in our paint tray already. Now we can go ahead and begin painting. I am looking at this reference photo here, and it's a natural kind of pattern, so you don't have to be too specific, just kind of generally follow it. I'm going in and I'm doing a dry wash of my darker brown and my medium brown. I'm just kind of looking at the picture. Where does it get slightly darker? Where does it stay lighter? And I'm painting my paper. For the white fur area, I'm going to do a very light gray wash over that area. So that way when I go and try and draw with my Prismacolor, I have a chance of the white Prisma actually showing up. Because you can't put white Prisma on white paper. Nothing's going to happen. So I'm mixing a very light gray by putting a little bit of black and watering it down in my wells. And then I'm going to very carefully, very lightly paint the white area. You're going to be very careful because, as you can see, if you touch your brown that is still wet, it is going to bleed slightly. But I'm not worried about it because this is a very natural pattern and this is just practice right now. If you were doing this on your project, remember you're going to want to have some patience and let areas dry before painting next to it. Now we are going to begin painting the dirt area. And we're actually going to go diagonal so that way it gives our fur a little chance to dry before we paint directly next to it. So I am loading my well with all my different shades. This picture has a little bit more of an orangey tone to it, so I'm mixing orange and brown in one of my wells. And then I still have some of my darker browns to pull from the fur. I'm going to quickly do a wash using those different orangey browns, regular brown, and a little bit of dark brown, just according to my reference photo here. This one doesn't have much detail to it right now, so it's just a wash. We want to do this quickly so it doesn't dry on us before we do this next part. Really quickly, you're going to grab some salt and you're going to lightly sprinkle it over your wet wash. This is going to absorb some of the some of the paint into the salt and leave some lighter areas that's going to look like your bumpy dirt. Tomorrow, when this is dry, we will wipe off all of this salt. I have waited a few minutes before doing this step because I want to make sure that the other one is a little bit dry so I don't have to worry about any bleeding. I'm going to get my paint palette all set up with the colors I'm going to need for this one. We are doing feathers, and I can see I have an orangey brown, a dark brown, and a lighter brown. So I'm getting all of that set and on my palette. As I begin to start painting, I am looking at the reference photo and kind of generally placing the colors where I see them. It's not going to be perfect. We will go back and do that when we get to the texture Prisma on top. Right now, I'm just getting a nice base coat where I see these different shadows. I'm not going to worry about it if it starts to bleed together because, again, we will finish this and get more details later on the Prismacolor part. Now we are going to practice doing a wood texture. I'm going to start by getting my paint palette ready again. This time the colors I can see in our reference photo here are more of a light tan and a little bit of a darker brown. Once we begin painting, we're going to be doing a very light wash over the entire surface of that lighter tan color. Then I'm going to use that darker color and use the very tip of my brush to make sure I have skinny little lines and kind of draw out the different sections I see in our wood. Now that I have the different sections of the wood, I'm going to take that darker brown and kind of mark in where I see the knots in those woods. So that way I have different values to work with once we get to Prismacolor. We are going to be doing tiny little lines going the correct direction to make the fur. I'm going to be alternating between different shades of brown and some whites. Make sure that you are looking at your reference photo to know which direction the lines go. It will change depending on where it is on the animal. So right now it's all kind of going at a diagonal down to the left, but then it can start curving in other areas as well. Make sure that you are switching between colors, paying attention to your reference photo. So where does it get darker? Where is it lighter? All of that is really important to making this look accurate. When it comes to a really light area, like the white part of the fur, we have a base coat of a light gray from our watercolor, but I'm still going to establish the direction of the fur first with my light gray, so that way I can see it a lot better. But you should be able to switch to some white and it should show up in some areas. So I'm very lightly making short little strokes, making sure they're not even. They're all different lengths to make my fur look correct. When making the feathers, I like to start with one of my lighter browns, and I'm going to establish the correct shape first. Then I'm going to go through and I'm going to draw the spine of the feather, and usually it's a lot lighter, so I'm going to use my white to do that. And then I can go through and based off of which colors I see, I can shade in and color in that feather, making sure I'm going the direction towards that spine. Make sure that you pay attention to the direction the feathers are going. They don't all go the same direction. Sometimes they kind of have a little twist to them. You can see that as I'm drawing this feather here. I'm going to make sure that I am adding all the shadows and highlights as I see them in my picture to make this look as accurate as possible. Once I've established all the lighter areas, I'm going to go through and start finding all those darker shadows and placing those underneath it as well. To do the wood, you need to realize that wood is coming from a tree, obviously, and trees every year get another ring on them as they get bigger. So this wood is actually the tree sliced down. So we do see those rings, which is why in these slices of wood you see all these lines, and they usually make some type of like connecting shape. I started by establishing where the knots were in my pieces of wood. Those are those really dark areas. And I shaded those in first. And then I start kind of making those spiraling or consecutive lines right next to each other to make the wood grain. As you're doing this, try to make each wood slice a little bit different from the other. So that way you can see um, more of a change between each one and it's not all blending together. Once I get some of that grain on there, I can go back with another shade of brown and add some darker values in as well. The first step when drawing dirt is to remove the salt that dried on there yesterday. You might want to use the side of a pencil so that way it doesn't hurt your finger. Now we can go back in and add more detailed rocks and pebbles on our dirt. I'm going to start with a base coat of a lighter brown, go in and mark in the highlight, and then go in and do a darker shadow on the opposite side of our highlight. You're going to keep repeating these steps, varying in sizes to create all your different pebbles. Remember, the closer they are to you, the bigger they usually get and the more detail that they have in them.